The UN chief says the SDG summit should represent a quantum leap in the world's capacity to implement the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and he sees a catalytic role for the G77 Plus China that gathers in Cuba on Friday and Saturday.
That group is essentially, I would say, it is vital, because the central question we are addressing in relation to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and the response to the climate disruption, the central question is, first of all, how countries are able to mobilize their own resources and to align their policies with the SDGs, and this is valid for all developing countries, and namely for all the members of the G77. So there is a commitment that each country must make. But we also need to recognize that the present international financial situation does not facilitate the life of developing countries.
The SDG summit comes at the halfway mark of the 2030 development agenda, and implementation has been staggeringly poor across targets and goals, with warnings that development progress is reversing under the combined impacts of climate disasters, conflict and economic downturn.
The G77 and China are also important in helping to build a consensus and raising their voice in order to make the changes in the international financial architecture, in order to make the changes in the debt policies, in the concessional funding policies, and in many other aspects, in order to make sure that the international financial system works to the benefit of developing countries and allows them to overcome the present situation in which many of them are facing debt distress or close to it, and have not the fiscal space that is needed to be able to effectively implement the Sustainable Development Goals.
As he again pointed to the emergence of a multipolar world, arguing that while it could be a factor of equilibrium, he cautioned that it could also lead to escalating tensions, fragmentation, or worse.
To bring our multipolar world together, we need strong, reformed multilateral institutions anchored in the United Nations Charter and international law. Today's multilateral institutions that were created after the Second World War reflect the power and economic dynamics of that time, and so they need reform. And I know reform is fundamentally about power, and there are obviously many competing interests and agendas in our increasingly multipolar world. But at a time when our challenges are more connected than ever, the outcome of a zero-sum game is that everyone gets zero. I will go into further detail in my address to the General Assembly on Tuesday.
A week that will see key gatherings on development, climate ambition, pandemic prevention and universal health coverage, among others. Other key meetings will include a session focused on the humanitarian situation in war-torn Sudan and a heads of state and government meeting in the Security Council on Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky is expected to brief in person. Guterres also pointed to efforts to reinvigorate the stalled Black Sea grain initiative, which Russia withdrew from in July. And on the broader question of peace talks in relation to that war, he reiterated his view that the prospects for peace, in line with the UN Charter and international law, remained a long way off for now. Shervin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.